Hi, I'm Catherine Cervasio and I'm the founder of Aromababy Natural Skincare. We have approximately 24 products at the moment, and that includes a range of oils and creams and healing balms across a whole range of sectors for mother and baby. We began exporting within a few short years of launching the business, and as a result we're really well established in countries like Hong Kong, Singapore, the Middle East, and more recently in China, which is a really exciting region with lots and lots of opportunity.
I guess for the audience, for the viewers, I'm speaking to Catherine Cervasio. She's the founder of Aromababy, which she founded in 1994. So I'm really honoured to have you here today. Catherine, how are you?
Well, thank you. Lovely to join you.
Likewise. So I guess today, Catherine, I really want to dig deep into your journey as an entrepreneur, but also really understand your ethos to smart branding, I guess, and the way in which you built your product from humble beginnings to where you are now, pretty much a world-ranking brand. So I guess my first question really comes down to the early days, the early beginnings. What inspired you to go into business? And I know very well that looking at your story, you did start early. In fact, when you were 15, you kind of left school to pursue some kind of rewarding career. And at the time, it was sort of a hit and miss, wasn't it?
Definitely.
Bit of an experimental journey for you. So maybe explain a little bit of that,
Sure.
those early years.
I think, look, my independence started way back, and I was making things and selling them before I was 10 years old, like to neighbours and friends. I remember charging children with my girlfriend 5 cents to come into the shed at lunchtime and listen to us sing. Yes, I think from a young age there was an entrepreneurial style of thinking, and that's just an example of that. At 12, I put my hand up for a part-time job. At 15, I wanted to learn, I wanted to leave school. I'd been learning secretarial things in my own time at home. And when I had my full-time job, I kept my part-time job. So, and I kept that for a couple of years until, I moved on from my first full-time job into some other things. I ended up in fashion and beauty, and the rest is history.
So I guess by the time you were, say, 20 or 22, you've already tried many different things. And I like the fact that you've already mentioned the word entrepreneur or entrepreneurial. And looking back at your early years, did you envisage the successful career path you eventually had as an entrepreneur? So your vision back then, was it entrepreneurial?
I think my vision was always thinking outside the square and talking about creative thinking. So how can I do something different, or what can I do in this situation, or how can I make something of that? So, maybe a combination of being creative and thinking differently, and also that entrepreneurial spirit. But I didn't really plan to have a business or build a global brand or anything like that. It was all fairly reactive. I found myself in a situation. I thought, what can I do? How can I turn this into something positive? And that's kind of been the story the whole way through.
Sure. So as I've said before, Aromababy has been around for quite a while now, probably 25 years.
22
to be precise. And, up to this point, you've obviously dominated the Australian marketplace with your niche product in the organic baby skin care sort of range. But you've also expanded globally. And I know that you've got presence in a number of countries, including Asia, Europe and America, and also China for that matter. And I'd be interested to sort of look into that area of your business and why you chose to focus in that particular area. But before we do that, I really want to understand, you talk about trial and error and you talk about experimenting, and as a designer that you are, how did you know what the market wanted at the time when it came to formulating that right product with that right brand?
I think my way of thinking was always looking at what's the absolute latest in trends and looking at them overseas. So 20 odd years ago, I was developing product for major fashion retailers in Australia. And at the time there was no internet, so you had to physically go to New York and Paris. It was terrible. And then you had to look at what trends were emerging and then try and adapt those really quickly to the local market. So I suppose that design side of it and the product development side of it, I found, a whole lot of fun, and I was really good at it. And the director of the company that I was working for at the time said to me, look, you've got a flair for sort of style and fashion and product development. Why don't I put you into this new role and I'll give you an office and, we'll send you overseas and do that. And I said, no, that sounds a bit like sales to me, because I'm going to have to get those trends, adapt them, and then I have to sell them to Sportsgirl or Myer or whoever it is. And he said, look, let's do it this way. I'll give you a car, a pay rise, an office, and I'll send you overseas. And if you don't like your new job, you can have your old job back. And I said, deal. And that was the start of where I am today. So I think if he hadn't have seen that potential and pushed me to believe in myself, I perhaps may not be where I am today. Yeah. And I worked in a few different areas of fashion and publishing and working with luxury goods. And it gave me a really good exposure to a whole range of things within small business.
So even before you knew that you were an entrepreneur or you were an entrepreneur, I guess operating within the confines of an organisation within retail like Sportsgirl, you obviously discovered your entrepreneurial potential and talent. And I guess in that environment you learnt and you adapted and you started perhaps to think about possibilities for your own career outside of that area. So I guess at what point did Aromababy as a name emerge in your life around that time frame?
I was actually retrenched. So I think I like things to stay the same. I like to be in the same house. I like everything just to be consistent. But I was actually retrenched just a couple of weeks before Christmas in 1993, and around the same time I found out that we were expecting our first baby. So I actually went for a job. I remember I went for a job at Country Road, and then I thought, what am I doing? I can't get a full-time job. I'm going to be a new mother in 6 months or something. So when I was first retrenched, I actually cried with all the girls in the office. We all cried, and and then I thought the next day, right, action. Trademark, register a business, do something.
Get in there.
And that's how I am. I'm sort of quite sensitive and emotional, but then it's like back to business and how can I turn this into a positive, and that's just how my life is.
Yeah, so look, what I'm pretty much hearing is your adaptability, but also your opportunity to take advantage of the situation at hand. So obviously the stress of retrenchment plus maybe having a young baby is not an easy task, but I guess you had a vision at that point. You felt like, I need to do something with my life, and you did. So I guess fast forward those 22 years, you now have a world ranking brand. I like to call it that. But if we do go back those 22 years, it was humble beginnings. So, is that an opportunity for a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs to create such a successful brand from humble beginnings? Is that a possibility nowadays?
Absolutely. I think, though, what I didn't have, entrepreneurs these days do have, and that's access to a global market really seamlessly. There's so much opportunity with social media and the internet. We didn't have access to that. So it was all, walking the pavement and knocking on doors. And, that passion did spill out. So I guess that's a benefit of being able to be in front of the end user or the front of the buyer. But I do believe if you've got something really unique and you're really passionate and authentic about it, that there is a global stage now, not just, your geographical confines of how many doors you can knock on. Sure.
So I guess your fuel to that car was your passion, your vision, the trial and error and so forth, and that's what kind of propelled you forward. But along the way, I'm sure you would have had a lot of bumps. What were your challenges in the earlier years of startup?
Look, definitely in the early years, I was a new mother. So, focused on family and nurturing a newborn and trying to build what was a growing business in a market that was had no idea of natural organic at the time. So because it was so ahead of its time, it meant that I had to spend a lot of time on education and providing information. So I looked at where the biggest competitors in the market were, and they were in hospitals and pharmacy. So that's where I focused my attention. So there was a lot of working from home in the early days, and there was a lot of juggling the baby on the knee and not answering the phone because your baby was crying. So you couldn't have a proper business conversation. And then, fast forward a little while, we had to get our own premises and we had to invest in stock and carry stock. So we got into Myer, but that meant carrying more stock. So, pressure on cash flow, intellectual properties as you start exporting, and are you protected in those markets? Is your trademark registered by somebody else? We had quite a unique name. It was a made up name. It didn't exist before we started. So it meant that, we secured trademarks and that kind of thing very early on, but one of them happened to be in the wrong market. We ended up exporting to the Middle East and had registered trademarks in the US. So I guess, whilst my journey's been quite reactive, there's definitely the importance of strategy and having a plan.
Absolutely.
Is vital.
Absolutely, and it's good to hear that. So staying on the subject of challenge, copycats, protecting your intellectual property. you've obviously developed a reputable brand, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there looking, saying, well, that's nice, I could probably do something similar. How did you deal with, or how do you deal with the copycats out there?
Again, it's very personal for me, because what I developed was a result of being a mother. In fact, when I started my business, I was still doing some product development for other brands. And then within a few months of being pregnant, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to use on my baby? And there was no natural products at all 22 years ago. So it really was a combination of looking at the research and concern about potential ingredients causing eczema and reactions on the skin, that my brand was born. So for me, the whole brand and the business, it's very personal. So I suppose being able to stand by my ethics and by my ingredients and the reason that we developed it, it's held us in really good stead for all these years. There are some confusingly similar looking brands, but I've learned to focus on what our strong points of difference are. And now all of the brands that are out there are pretty much fighting it out in that mass market, where we've created this niche of more of a premium health professional range in hospitals and pharmacy. And that's where we sit. So we've almost, we're here, and it's those really strong points of difference that we began with. We're back to our roots when we're not needing to compete on price, because we're happy to sit there at that price level because it's a different kind of product. There's different types of ingredients, the formulations are different, we own them, there's different levels of efficacy, and that's what makes us so different. And now we've got 22 years of brand heritage.
So in terms of difference and evolving, changing, and even disrupting, how important is it to disrupt? And how is it perhaps relevant or linked to my other question before of dealing with the copycats and so forth? So I guess the question is it important to disrupt in the industry?
I believe it's important to disrupt in any industry, because if you don't have a really thinking outside of the box kind of mentality, you're going to just melt into all the other things that are out there, because everyone has the same opportunity to take a product or service to market. An idea can just turn into a business. So your ability to disrupt or to do something differently or to think outside that square, I think is really crucial in developing a longer term strategy. My aim was always to build a brand and have that brand legacy, not just to build a business and sell it within a couple of years, to have a business that I could work around my children and my family. That was my idea of what I wanted out of Aromababy. So it is quite different to perhaps somebody who just comes up with an idea or copies somebody's product look in order to build a brand in a certain market and sell it for a profit in a couple of years. That was not my goal.
Sure. In formulating that brand, that powerful brand that you talk about, how important is talent? So you, the founder, you as the designer, how important is for you to carry that level of skill versus perhaps having the right connections of people around you who can help you build the business or build the brand? How do you sort of rank the two in terms of the importance of connections and partnerships versus your own talent and your own ability to formulate that perfect product?
I think there's definitely a need to have your own talent and skill set, and it needs to be different, I guess, to maybe what your competitors or what the market already has. But similarly, there is really, really strong importance on connections. Those sort of connections that you need to get the longevity and to get the mass sort of things happening, they don't happen overnight. Those kind of connections are built by having ethics and values and building authentic connections over a longer period of time, and going perhaps in with a mindset of how can I serve, or what can I do, how can I add value, and that's what I love. Looking at ways to collaborate with brands that you can see something that you can do for them. And that's different to going in there thinking, oh, I can get something out of this, I'm going to connect with them or network with them, or, it's a completely different way of connecting.
I really love your ethos or your formula to success, which is really hinging around authenticity. It's also about serving, and you mentioned collaboration. And I think putting those three components together really does underpin the success you've had so far. Looking at your market of export again and coming back to the different destinations that you've targeted, I'm really interested to understand China and how that fits into your strategy and in terms of dealing with the copycats, because the initial impression that people may have about China would be, oh, they're there to copy. But you've seen an opportunity, you've looked at it the other way. So can you sort of share some light on that?
I think because we had that 15 years of heritage already there and we had trademarks secured, so our IP was fairly protected, you could say, as much as it could be in a market that is known for its copycat problem. But it was more about connecting with businesses or people that were going to be the right fit for us. And I think I believe if you think well and you connect on a really authentic level, that you attract the right kind of people and partners to do business with. And I won't say it's luck. I think it's just by doing the right thing and doing good things that you will bring in a team or a crew that sees things the way you see it. So we've had some really good partnerships in China. Where we have failed to, have something protected, they would help us and walk us through some of the things that need to happen. So I'm not so concerned about the copycats. The market like China would look at, maybe some of the big global brands, multinationals, in terms of copying and the value in copying. We're only a small niche brand in a huge, huge market. So that is honestly the least of my concerns. The other thing we're doing in China is what we do in other markets. We run workshops and we educate and we help to empower women in particular around their choices of, wellness products around pregnancy and birth. So they could perhaps, replicate our product look, but it wouldn't be the same efficacy, and it may sell once or it may not sell at all, because there's all the other things that we've built around it as a structure that go with the brand. So if we're providing a service and a model that offers support and education around the brand, then being in a retail store offers parents to have an emotional connection with the product, so they can go in and feel it and smell it and touch it and trust it's from Australia, look at the packaging. But if you are just selling online, then I see that is where there is more potential for copy products and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So to register products in China is a lengthy and expensive process. And again, we're in quite a niche position there because no other brands in our sector have certainly done that. They haven't successfully registered and passed.
So I guess in summary, to pursue that sort of market, it's not a matter of throwing yourself in the deep end and dealing with it. Perhaps it's more about looking at it strategically,
Yes.
working with the right sort of people, and also learning along the way, perhaps. Just quickly on the point of learning and education, you've mentioned education a number of times, firstly from your own point of view, your own education, but also empowering and educating the women or the clients that are using your product. How important is education nowadays for up-and-coming young entrepreneurs entering the marketplace, as compared to just dealing with it and learning as you go versus having formal qualifications?
I think if you want to be the expert in your field and if you want to be the authority on what you do, then that expertise comes from having some formal training.
Yep.
And I'm not talking about a weekend course in something. I did a diploma over 3 years part-time. I went to train as an infant massage instructor. And whilst they're both more tactile, they're not business building skills, they are what has helped buoy me when I've needed to, establish myself in new markets and look for a point of difference, because I've got some qualifications that go with the brand that I've built. So it all goes together and it matters.
Yep. I mean, I know, if we stereotype the young aspiring entrepreneur, they want to take a shortcut approach, and
Sure.
for them it's just get out there and achieve success overnight. Is there such a thing as achieving success overnight with a new product?
Look, there can be, but again, it's like if it's business and it's just about profit, money at the end of the day, and it's an in and an out, that's a different style of running a business.
Sure.
My goal was looking at brands like Aesop and, market leaders in the sort of, natural Australian product sector, and looking at what are they doing and how their whole brand has an ethos, their staff, their style, their stores. So that's the type of thing that I look at and think, I like that.
In terms of the standards that you perhaps dictate or within your own company, but as a brand ambassador that you are, if we look at the standards that you're trying to accomplish, how important is that companies that enter this market maintain those standards?
We don't have a lot of regulation in Australia about labelling and standards and things like that in our industry, but different sectors do, and certainly nursery products do as an overall, with cots and car seats and other sorts of things.
Yes.
But yeah, look, I think maintaining and knowing what the regulations are, we certainly do have some, and knowing what they are and adhering to them is really, really important, because if the ACCC or TGA can find something that's wrong, or somebody else has complained, and it could be a competitor, then you may need to rebrand your whole product line. So it's just about really educating yourself. Nothing's easy, but if you're going to do it, we're in a sector where we deal with newborn babies and pregnant women. They're very vulnerable. We're in a position where we need to be really responsible about the information that we provide. And if you're providing product to a hospital, on what basis is that? Is your product based on research? Have you done some neonatal research yourself? Have you sat in on 50 midwifery conferences so that you understand how dermatology of a newborn is different to that of an adult? I mean, this is a really important sector, and I think we need to be informed as brand owners so that we can
respond to questions and queries and issues and so.
But also to be genuinely giving a safe product and marketing our products accurately, not misleading.
And maintaining that authentic
Yes.
brand. In terms of marketing your brand, or the way you've done it up to now, and looking ahead as well, how important is social media? And also how important is to have, say, brand ambassadors or endorsements? Now, I know that you've had success in selling your product to a number of celebrities out there, like Leonardo DiCaprio, and also George Clooney, and Kelly Preston, the son of John Travolta, have used your product. How important is that for your own marketing, and how does that sort of fit into social media as well?
I think, I was looking at celebrity clients well before it was kind of popular, before the influencer phenomenon emerged. But it was more about, we had a men's face cream at the time, and I went to an event and I got it into the hands of George Clooney and Leonardo and a few other people. But then I thought, there's no point in doing that if I can't leverage off it. So for me, they weren't dads, they didn't have babies, and hey, it's okay to talk about what you've done and giving them product. If you're talking about a celebrity, a mum who you've gifted or you've given product to through a direct contact, then I think we need to be really careful about how we leverage or abuse potentially that connection or exaggerate that situation. So we're very mindful about being respectful.
Authentic,
yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes we do have direct connections to the celebrities, and in the case of John Travolta, it was actually a girlfriend of mine who took some gifts to him while he was here for a Qantas event. And so it was personally delivered to him. He took it home to his wife. She went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. She wrote me a beautiful note. Right. And then I went to an event in LA and met her, and she went, oh my gosh, the products, wow, we love them. So it really was a full circle piece of feedback.
Yep,
and that's quite unique. It doesn't happen very often like that.
But I guess it started from an authentic purpose or
yes,
reason.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So for me, if we've got a luxury, premium, beautiful, research-based product, why wouldn't I want to give that to a celebrity or an influential person? Because I'm very proud of it, and I think it fits that kind of end user. If I owned a supermarket brand, would I be gifting a celebrity? Probably not, because it doesn't fit. So I think it needs to fit, it needs to work, and you need to be really respectful about using the feedback.
Absolutely. So with social media, how important is it to use social media? It's often overrated, or people say you have to be on Facebook and so forth. How important is it for you to use social media?
I think social media for us is becoming a really nice avenue to push retailers. So we're communicating to mums, that's fine. We've got a great database where we can send out e-club newsletters and that kind of thing. But with social media, it allows you to build a community. So we're only new on Instagram, and we need to sort of focus a little bit of effort there. But certainly our Facebook has a lot of followers for our sector and a high level engagement, but we are very mindful of making sure that we mix it up, and it's not just about selling, it's about providing information in line with what we do in the retail space. But I think it's really important, and it's a tool that's there to be used, and the landscape is changing all the time.
So is it important for you to be on as many platforms as possible, or have you found your niche?
I think we've found what works for us, and that's where we're concentrating our efforts.
Sure. Now, I know that you're an influencer in the industry. you're obviously a brand ambassador, but there are a lot of people that look up to you and look at your story and admire what you've achieved. How important has it been for you to have industry mentors or influencers during the years that you were developing your brand and starting up, I guess?
I didn't actually have a mentor as such. I mean, I looked at my first, the employer that sort of pushed me to take on that role as somebody who inspired me and encouraged me. But along with building the business, I grew a family. So for me, it wasn't about going out and actually being mentored, although I think that is such a valuable thing to do. I do mentor, but I wasn't actually mentored. And I'm probably at the level now where I need somebody to come in and go, right, how do we take this to the next level? And what's the exit strategy in 5 or 10 years' time? But I do believe having a mentor or mentors is really crucial. And we've got access to them now online. It's not about going and having a face-to-face meeting anymore. There are lots of ways that you can be mentored.
Sure. Do you have any mentor out there in the world that you look up to and think, wow, they've got an amazing story, an amazing product that's global as well?
Definitely. I suppose if you look at maybe Emma Isaacs, who started Business Chicks, and she's also done that around, growing a family, and she's, I think, currently pregnant with her 5th baby and relocated to the States after she's built her empire here. So whilst they don't have a physical product like I do, they have a magazine and they have a lot of events, but she's built this this tribe and this culture where it does inspire and it does provide mentoring and it provides support through the avenues that she's made available. So look, I look up to women like that, for example, who to me are juggling and getting it right.
I think this is really resonating. Developing a community, a tribe, building that culture, collaborating, and really this is about sharing the story and really making something out of it, not just for yourself but for the end user. I think that's a very clever strategy, which is authentic, but really is the way in which you can build a long-term brand. So looking at the future, where do you see yourself evolving and growing over the next 5 or 10 years?
Okay, so we're really just looking at re-establishing ourselves back in the Australian market after, the market here is now settled and there's a lot of products in grocery. So that mid-section where it comes with the health professional advice in pharmacy is not really being catered to. The things that are in pharmacy are also in grocery, and they're fighting over margin and market share. So I think that's an interesting sector for us to be looking at. So certainly some growth in Australia. We just launched in national pharmacies a little while ago. So we are looking at building back at our home base. And in terms of export, we've started doing a little bit in Europe, where we're in the Middle East, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, but China is obviously one of those huge opportunities. We're just taking it really slowly and trying to do everything there the way we've done here and in other markets. So selling in conjunction with education and providing all the other things that we're known for. It's not just about building our business and making extra sales. It's really about building something long term.
Sure. I have one last question for you,
Sure.
and it wasn't scripted. Hopefully that's okay. What's your philosophy to social entrepreneurship, or perhaps doing something for the world in terms of serving the world or making it a better place? Is there anything in your powers that you think you could do with your product to make it a better place? Oh,
I think we're already doing that in our own little way. I mean, this was the first natural baby care brand in the world. It's the only one that we know of that was developed at that time. It provides parents with a choice, especially when there's eczema and skin problems involved and they may not be able to use a sort of mass market product. We give so much product to hospitals and charities and organisations. It's very rare that we say no, we probably never say no. So I think in our way, we are making a difference, and we're big about talking about the importance of touch and baby massage. So it's helping to educate mums about bonding with their babies, and baby massage and the power of touch is something that other siblings can get involved with and the fathers can get involved with. So in our little way, we know we're making a difference because we're told it every day.
Great. And to end the interview, perhaps, what's your favourite quote?
Do small things with great love.
Lovely. Well, thank you, Catherine. It's really great to chat with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.